presented by Fortnite Master. Good key bindings are the foundation for good gameplay, but finding the optimal key bindings can be time consuming. In this video, we'll give some guidelines you should follow when setting your key bindings, examples of top players' key binds, and include a few ways to practice your new binds and playgrounds. Without wasting any time, let's get started. Keybinds refer to specific keys you use to perform actions in-game, like shooting and building. Movement keybinds, for example, are always bound to WASD, while shooting and aiming down sight are bound to left and right click. These are your core keybinds and shouldn't need changing. Other keybinds like your weapon slots, building, and edit buttons are all keybinds that you should think about changing. The default bindings for these can work, but aren't necessarily optimal. Changing them could make certain things easier to execute in-game. Trying to find the best key bindings may feel overwhelming at first because every player seems to have different preferences. There are, however, patterns that almost every pro player and streamer follows when it comes to binds. Ultimately, you should test different setups and stick with key bindings that are comfortable for you and work well with your gameplay. Before we talk about specific key binds for weapon slots, building, and editing, we need to distinguish the most valuable keys on your keyboard. The most important keys are those that are closest to your movement buttons because they're the easiest to reach. This includes keys like Q, E, F, Z, X, C, V, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. You should try to bind these keys to actions you use most often, like main weapon slots, building, and editing. It's also important to recognize the value of left shift, caps lock, and tab. These are three more important keys that can be quick and easy to hit once you get used to it. Many of your favorite players and streamers also use mouse buttons for extra accessibility binds. The most common mouse buttons are mouse button 4 and mouse button 5, which are usually 2 buttons on the side of the mouse. Some mice have more than that, but we're going to stick with just 2 mouse binds in this guide. Unfortunately, not all mice have extra buttons, and this might not be accessible to everyone. However, if you do have a mouse with extra buttons, mouse button 4 and 5 are pretty easy to hit with your thumb, and should be considered additional important keys. They work quite well for any of the 4 building key binds or weapon slots. First, you want to unbind Q. This key is much more useful for other stuff, and you never need to use that button because you can just swap to a specific build/weapon to achieve the same effect. Your pickaxe is bound to F by default. We recommend rebinding this because F is one of the easiest keys to reach, making it great for something like edit. A decent workaround is to move your weapon slots to 2 to 6 and bind your pickaxe to 1. If this doesn't feel comfortable, try checking out the pickaxe bind that some of your favorite players use. The use button is bound to E by default. Changing this bind is more of a matter of preference. If you feel that E can be more useful for a build or weapon, you can try rebinding it to an extra mouse key, or another key relatively close to WASD. Myth and Cypher PK, for example, have use bound to V, so they can have E bound to an important build or weapon. You should turn on sprint by default too. It's good in general and frees up a valuable key in left shift. Crouch is a good bind for this key, which will free up left control for something like auto run. Now that we know a little more about the important keys and default binds, let's talk about your building key bind specifically. The default binds are Z, X, C, V, which aren't horrible, but we would recommend playing around with them to find the most comfortable combination for you. For building key binds like your wall, floor, ramp, and pyramid, keep them on your most important keys like Q, E, Z, F, C, V, mouse button 4, or mouse button 5. Finding the right combination of these binds is a matter of trial and error and may take some time testing in Playground. Your edit button should be bound to a key that's extremely accessible and can be hit accurately multiple times in a quick session. That's why many pros and streamers choose F for their edit, because it sits right next to the key that your pointer finger naturally sits on. Any of the other valuable keys mentioned previously will work too, as long as you're comfortable making quick edits with your chosen key. If you're using a mouse with more than 2 buttons, stay away from having more than 2 building binds on your mouse. While mouse buttons are convenient, many more advanced builds require you to quickly click a sequence of keys. With more than 2 builds on your mouse, some of these become unnecessarily difficult. Default binds for weapons are F for pickaxe and 1 to 5 for weapon slots. These aren't horrible, but you might want to change some of them if you're having trouble hitting any of the number keys or you want to use F for another important bind like edit. In our experience, 1 to 4 are the easiest to hit of all the number keys. So if you want your pickaxe and weapons bound to numbers, use 1 to 4 for your pickaxe, AR, shotgun, and SMG slots. You want your main weapons to be on number keys that are the easiest to reach because these are the weapons that you'll be using mid-combat in intense scenarios that require fast decision making and action. Furthermore, you want to make sure these keys are easy for you to hit quickly and accurately. It's very important to be able to swap between your shotgun and SMG seamlessly, so make sure you have them binded close to each other. This reduces the amount of mental effort required in those high pressure fights. Binding your weapons to keys other than number keys is an option too, although this will require you to play around with your keybinds a bit more. If you're going to do this, keep your AR, Shoddy, and SMG bound to your most important keys. Your 4th and 5th slot, which are usually reserved for weapons like snipers, explosives, or healing items, can be bound to keys that are a little further from WASD. After you figure out building, editing, and weapon slot keybinds that are comfortable, it's easier to choose the rest of your binds with the remaining available keys. Keys like T, G, B, 5, and 6 are great for things like trap slot, rotating building, repairing building, etc. One of the most daunting things about setting keybinds is knowing where to start. A good starting point would be to look at what some pro players do, since their keybinds are tested on the daily and have been refined over a long period of time. We think Ghost Bizzle's keybinds are a great example, as they're more similar to the defaults than other players. All 4 of his building pieces are bound to keys immediately surrounding movement, Q, C, V, and X. His pickaxe and weapons are bound to the default 1 to 6. It's hard to question their effectiveness, with Bizzle being one of the top pros in terms of prize money earned. If you're interested in other pro players' keybinds, check the description below for links to keybinds used by Ninja, Myth, and Bizzle, as well as their own Fortnite master keybinds. Remember, the pro players' keybinds aren't set in stone. If something about them is a little uncomfortable, feel free to swap it up to make it comfortable for yourself. The first thing when testing new keybinds is to make sure you can do everything you want while keeping your movement smooth. You shouldn't need to stop moving to build or take out close range weapons. Also, remember that if you have to change your keybinds, getting used to new keybinds always sucks. Practicing in Playground is only useful to figure out patterns and getting muscle memory down. Getting accustomed to your new keybinds will take playing and dying embarrassingly in real games.
Every other week it seems like there's a new weapon, item, vehicle, you name it, added to the game. There's crazy new unique weapons such as the boom bow and the flint knock pistol. And even some older ones are being changed. Because of all this, what loadouts are viable in Season 8 is definitely something to think about. Keep in mind, when we talk about viability, it's mainly for the Battle Royale game mode. We'll make sure to point out what works better in Arena versus pubs. We won't be ranking them in order, but more by playstyle. This way, hopefully you can find a loadout that matches the way you play. So without further ado, my name is Keith Allen Henson, and let's get started. These are Fortnite's best loadouts for getting you wins in Season 8. A quick couple of general tips before we get started. With the start of Season 8, there are 2 significant changes which allow you to get high-tier items quite easily. The first is that the vending machines are always blue or higher in rarity, so landing at vending machine locations can be an easy way to complete a lot of these loadouts in your games. Another is the addition of the treasure map, which guarantees several gold pieces of loot. An item definitely worthy of its name, these are always worth getting so you can complete your in-game loadout. Sometimes you have to travel a decent distance to unbury it, so if the treasure map is out of your way, try to use a vehicle to get there faster. You'll be back on track soon enough. This loadout has been a staple in the game for a few seasons now, and is still, in our opinion, one of the best and most consistent loadouts for winning games. But there's a few choices you can make preference-wise with this kit. If you have some faith in your aim abilities, you can choose to take an AK as your rifle so you can get those 3-shot eliminations. But once you find a SCAR, we would recommend dropping the AK for it. While the AK has some higher damage, it's outshined by the higher damage per second the SCAR has, which is especially useful versus structures. The bloom on the AK is very poor as well, making full spraying a player a bit difficult. Another choice, if you hate bloom and would rather have your bullets go where you aim, is the scoped AR. Not a bad choice for an early game rifle. It did get buffed in damage recently and might be a decent choice to run up until you find a SCAR. As for which SCAR to choose, they both do the same damage to structures but have different output to players. The regular SCAR does a significant amount more, but it's hard to quantify the effectiveness of a silencer, which can help you land a couple more bullets before your opponent notices where he's being shot from. The regular SCAR is meant for spraying, while the silent SCAR is more meant for first shot accuracy tapping. Either way, which one you end up using comes down to personal preference. But if you're having doubts, the regular SCAR is likely the way to go. For the shotgun, you gotta always run a pump. The pump is just so much more powerful than the tac shotgun is, especially since they buffed the pump to one-shot capabilities for its blue and greater rarity. The tac shotgun just doesn't do enough damage until you get really close range, where a pump can kill you even at full health. Almost everything is better about the pump shotgun, so we recommend always taking it. For your SMG slot, you can choose between a blue silence SMG or a P90. Some players prefer using the blue silence SMG as its spread is better than the P90. It's also silenced, which can help you land a few more bullets before your opponent notices where he's being shot from, possibly netting you a kill you wouldn't even have gotten otherwise. The P90 does have 10 extra ammo in each magazine and has a higher DPS, which makes it better for spamming build. Simple rule of thumb is, if you like using an SMG to finish off players, the blue silenced is better. If you like pressuring opponents' builds, the P90s is better. In the end, they're pretty similar and it's just up to your preference. For the fourth slot, we recommend a utility item. Now, you do have some choice in what to choose here. Between slurp juices, big pots, med kits, glider redeploy, rift to goes, etc. There are a lot of viable items you can use, and it's going to mostly end up depending on what you manage to find. Here's what we recommend. Having a rift is almost like having a get out of jail free card. You can use them to escape a ton of bad situations. They are especially useful in Arena, where you need easy methods of rotation for the late game circles. But since they are rare and hard to come by, you usually end up running whatever utility you can find in this slot. It's hard to rank which are the best, but we would generally say slurps and big pots are usually the best to carry, unless you're playing Arena where rifts and redeploy can be much more useful. As for the last slot, you're going to usually find it taken up by minis. They fill up shield, are easily usable in fights because of their short cast time. They're also super easy to find out, it's likely what you'll have a lot of. A small variation of this loadout is the aggressive version, where you would replace the utility item with a more specialized or throwable weapon. The best weapon to run here would be between the heavy sniper and the RPG. They're both extremely strong weapons in their own ways. The heavy sniper allows you to get easy picks at a distance, as well as wall replace opponents in an instant, while the RPG is better for build fights and in-game arena matches. If you can't find an RPG or heavy sniper, you can run a grenade launcher, stink bombs, boogie bombs, clingers, or dynamite until you find one of those two. All the throwable items work pretty great, and if you can find more than one stack, you can consider using them. If you like sniping, you can choose to run a boom bow, hunting rifle, or silent sniper here as well. Playing the more aggressive version of this kit will help you get more kills, but sometimes it's better to run the safer option. This is probably the strongest loadout in terms of raw power at the moment, with the biggest cheese potential out of all of them. It involves shooting the RPG at a structure your opponents are hiding in, and then comboing with a heavy snipe on the wall right before the rocket hits it. If you can catch your opponent not holding turbo build, it's a free rocket's worth of damage on your foes. There's a higher risk running this kit, but if you mess up the combo, the reload time is super long, so smart enemies will take advantage of this by pressuring you. Having an RPG to use in combat, as well as a heavy sniper for long-range picks and wall replaces, makes this kit one of the outright most deadly in the game right now. Just take a look at Tfue utilizing this technique a couple days ago. Even though his teammate XQC was dead, he landed 3 hits with his RPG on them with it. He even goes in later with his heavy sniper for a quick wall replace into edit and pump shot. Tfue lands it, but they still have health somehow. Just imagine that he had a teammate in this scenario. They would have wiped this duo out with ease using this technique. One quick tip to point out is how Tfue aims his rocket. He shoots it at the corner of a 1x1 in order to confuse his opponents as to which wall he will heavy snipe. It's actually very clever and it helps him pull off the move. As for outside of the RPG and heavy sniper, you might end up having to spray the SCAR as a close range finisher after shotgun shots, so a regular SCAR is better here with its superior bloom and damage. This loadout is best suited for duos and squads, where a player who is comfortable using only a couple of weapons can hold the utility for the others. But it can also definitely work for solos as well, especially in Arena, where a lot of successful gameplay is based on keeping a good position and surviving rotations. With this kit, you only have a pump and an assault rifle to kill your enemies with. The assault rifle is versatile enough at any range, and the pump is for those close range chunks of damage. You forfeit at least one weapon with this kit, instead of choosing on an item that will help you rotate, as well as 2 healing items. This loadout lets you play positioning and maintain health between rotates more effectively than any other. One tip we can give you if you want to use this loadout is to practice swapping to your assault rifle after you shoot your pump. Don't be like many of us that are so used to running the submachine gun that you accidentally swap to your Rift to go. So far, Season 8 has brought us quite a few new weapons, so let's discuss whether or not they're good and when exactly you would want to use them. We're including the infantry rifle right here because when it is redesigned to be hit scan, along with its new epic and legendary variant, its viability went up massively. The biggest benefit of the infantry rifle is its low damage falloff. It sort of acts as a hit scan assault rifle sniper hybrid. If you have good aim, you can peg people far away for more than you could with the normal assault rifle. You can replace either a non-scar assault rifle or a sniper rifle with the infantry rifle in any of these loadouts and be fine, with the exception of a heavy sniper, which is too unique and powerful in its own way. The flintlock is somewhat good. Its biggest strength that separates it from other weapons is its knockback effect on the user. This means you can use it to prevent fall damage, gain height in a build fight, or launch yourself towards an opponent. It also does pretty decent damage around 90, making it definitely combat worthy. If you manage to land a headshot with it, you basically win the fight, considering how much damage it does. We recommend replacing an SMG with it if you feel like having some more mobility while you play, and using it as a follow-up to a pump shot. If you have a gold pump and a green flintlock, you can actually do 200 damage with 2 quick body shots, so those two make a perfect pair. The boom bow is probably one of the most unique weapons that come out in a while. The weapon can technically be used at any range, but you're gonna really hinder your movement if you attempt to use it in a close range fight versus a player who's building. Since the splash damage alone is 100 and it spawns on the ground, it's an exceptionally strong early game weapon to land on you if you manage to see one. The downside, however, is that the boom bow has one-shot potential only to 130 HP, whereas the heavy sniper has one-shot potential for both 150 HP and 200 HP. The heavy sniper being able to do one-shot builds as well just makes it a lot more effective. So for a sniper, there's nothing wrong with using the boom bow. It's not bad by any means, but the heavy is just too powerful to ignore once players get shield. In conclusion, the best loadouts in Season 8 are also what has been tried and true for a few seasons now. It really depends on your playstyle along with the game mode you're in to decide which loadout should be used, so try to experiment and find which one works best for you. Hey guys, once again,
and welcome to this analysis of Liquid Poach. Poach, he's a Fortnite superstar, plain and simple. The man is all business. He's cool, he's always calm, and he's collected. The reason why he wins almost all the time is because of his incredible game sense. In this video, I'm gonna break down how Poach uses his offense and defense to get out of sticky situations and how he almost wins every fight. After this video, you'll be one step closer to playing just like Poach. You ready? Let's do it.
Poach is in a solo vs squad game, and its loadout has all the essentials with the heavy AR, pump shotgun, and SMG. In this clip, we're going to watch Poach make all the right moves in a 1 vs 3 situation. Copy exactly what Poach does here to give yourself a chance at clutching a squad win for your team. Here, he spots out a player and decides not to take any shots just yet. This was a great decision. Instead, he gets even better position that allows him to fire multiple shots, and he ends up securing the kill with some sick headshots. He traps this player in a cone and is off to fight again. He's able to land a pop shot, and instead of taking the bloom fight that an average player would take, he makes the right play and he builds for high ground. So you guys might be asking, why did Poach win the ramp push but build the other way? You guys might have not seen it, but right as he ramp pushes there, another player is to his left. He recognizes this without even turning his camera. Whenever you're in a situation where you're outnumbered, you must prioritize high ground. Once you lose high ground in a 1v2, you're done for, and that's why Poach turned around. Right when he secures high ground, he goes into attack mode. He sees one of his opponents under him and quickly edits his ramp and floor and nails his opponent for kill number 2. This edit is extremely useful for any of you guys that are struggling to win fights despite having high ground. Now it's just 1 vs 1 and you already know how the story ends. Poach pulls out his SMG and the rest is history. In this example, you saw Poach display discipline by not taking the first available shot, and instead he gets better position. He also performed a great edit from high ground to surprise the enemy. Most importantly, he showed his amazing situational awareness by prioritizing high ground in the 1v2. Now you know a few more ways to impress your friends and clutch out a win solo versus squads. Here, Poach is in a solo game with a very nice loadout. He has a heavy AR, shotgun, and SMG. In this clip, we're going to examine how Poach plays the low ground and how he's able to beat not just one, but two players from inside the same box. After watching this clip, you'll have a better idea of how to win from an unfavorable position. Poach sees a freshly built wooden ramp and goes into instant high ground mode. I point this out in every single analysis video, and I'm going to keep doing it until every one of you guys are using this technique. Whenever you're ramp pushing, build a second ramp to the side. You cover so much ground, you deny your enemies from high ground, and it's just better in every single way. Once Poach gains high ground, he gives it up because he's Poach and he goes for the kill. He tries for a no-scope shot, and 99% of the time I say don't do it. But if you're that close, your chances aren't that bad. Poach quickly identifies that his own buildings are holding up his opponent's high ground. Destroying the base of the structure is always a solid choice whenever you're playing low ground. Poach chooses to edit instead of using his pickaxe or gun because editing makes significantly less sound. Poach is caught in the act of breaking the structure and is forced into a defensive box. Despite turbo building, Poach gets hit by 2 SMG shots. He could have prevented any damage by building a ramp, but he chose to play offensively instead, which is fine. His opponent eventually slips through Poach's wall, and it's an all-in fight from here. Even though Poach comes out on top, this is always a scary situation. Poach isn't finished just yet. He barely has time to drink many shields before another enemy is breaking through the top of his box. His opponent actually takes control of the cone, but makes a critical error against one of the smartest players in the game. Avoid at all costs standing directly over the top of your opponent's box because you will get edited in and end up like this guy, trapped in a box with no chance at all to get out. This clip had 2 very important lessons. The first lesson is to act quickly whenever you find yourself on low ground. Defending yourself while chopping down the structure is always a safe bet. The second lesson is to look for opportunities to play offensively when you're stuck in a box. There are many ways to do this, and we just explained 2 effective methods. The last example is a great display of Poach's ability to win games. Poach has a great loadout with a heavy AR and shotgun, SMG, and most importantly, a rocket launcher. This clip was taken from a Winter Royale qualifier match, so these players are very skilled as well. Once we explain all the subtle details of how Poach is able to win this game, you'll have a better understanding of how to close out games for yourself. To start things off, Poach fires a rocket at a player and follows up with AR shots. Even though the rocket didn't accomplish anything, you should always follow up your rocket launcher shot with your AR. Poach manages to slip in a single shot and doesn't overcommit, and he continues to go for high ground. Once he's there, he continues to apply pressure until he's forced off a high ground by the storm. Even though he takes fall damage, he's still trying to maintain high ground until he's forced into a tricky position. Pay close attention to how he masterfully plays out a terrible situation. As Poach jumps off the house, he fires a rocket at the floor. You might think that this was a terrible mistake, but you missed an important detail. Poach saw that a wall just broke, so he knows that a player is right there. Although this rocket didn't land, he could have eliminated someone. You need to use every single piece of information to win games, so start looking and listening. Let's look at Poach's positioning. The 3 players are in a triangle formation with Poach being at the tip, so you might be thinking, okay, great, why does this matter? When these 2 players are moving out of the storm in this direction, what do you see? That's right, they see Poach. Positioning is everything during moving circles. Despite being double teamed for a moment, Poach turtles at the exact right moment, and now the last 2 players are fighting each other. Instead of drinking shields, he goes for positioning and pressure. He's now in complete control of the situation. He counter-builds his opponent, and instead of editing and going for the 50-50 play, he goes for the 100% win. At this point, Poach has his opponent sandwiched between himself and the storm, plus he has a rocket launcher. He makes the exact same rocket play we talked about earlier when he was on top of the house, and he secures the victory royale. There are 2 takeaways from this clip that you need to carry with you into your own games. The first takeaway is to use every single piece of knowledge that's available to make the absolute best play. In a top 3 situation with the storm closing in, Poach paid attention to something as simple as a wall breaking to secure a win without putting himself in danger. The second takeaway is that positioning is the first step to success when the circle starts moving. You always want to be the player on the outside looking in. If you don't get good positioning, then turtle and wait for the circle to move.
Poach is at the point where he doesn't even have to celebrate wins anymore. This guy is just amazing. This was just a small example of what Poach can do. This guy has killer instincts, just like any great athlete. You guys are now one step closer to playing at that level as well. Let us know which pro player you want us to analyze next. Maybe one of his teammates, Vivid or Chap. Hey, leave it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Tfue makes an uncharacteristic mistake. While moving to the next zone, he scuffs a build and takes 50 fall damage. The best known American pro has never panicked like this before. He pushes for high ground and looks to heal, protecting himself with a 1x1. But unfortunately for Tfue, he makes another fatal mistake. He doesn't cover every angle and he leaves himself vulnerable. A budding Korean star, Envy, sees his chance and rocks the best player in the world with a pump to the face. One of these Korean stars is going to become the next Tfue. The question is, which one? Tfue is widely considered the best Fortnite player on the planet. So when you put him against players that have only played the game for 1 month, you'd expect nothing less than a blowout. But that wasn't the case. Although Tfue and KittyPlays took home the duo trophy, it was not easy. Sino and Oking gave them a run for their money. The match was incredibly close and came down to the very last minute of competition. It's safe to say that the unofficial overlords of esports have entered the fray. And in this video, we're going to analyze some of the plays that Tfue made, but also some developing Korean superstar players and how Korea will change competitive Fortnite forever. Clip number 1 is a 2v2 fight in the mid-game. Tfue's first move is to gain high ground with a quick 90. Once he and KittyPlays pin enemy number 1 on the ground, he drops down for a pump shot. The trade doesn't go as well as he wanted, so he quickly builds back to high ground. He has no idea where enemy number 2 is, so he has to play safe. He was actually pretty scared of getting pinched, but he has reinforced high ground and nails his enemy twice with an AR. Both enemies are low HP, and Tfue smells blood. He safely makes his way down, and as he does, you can see him turn his camera to check on enemy number 1. That's actually some really good awareness. So now that he's in the clear, he and KittyPlays look to isolate player number 2. But pay attention to this really good retake. He ends up jumping to the side and catches himself with the floor. Now it's time for a barrage of Tfue classics. But unfortunately, he only goes for a few chip shots and loses high ground. Instead of fighting for it, he drops down to low ground, because you don't always need to fight for high ground, that's the old meta. Instead, force your enemies to come down to you, just like you see here, and then bait your enemies into a huge shotgun shot. So this play was a straightforward, textbook example of how to play 2v2 fights. I thought we'd show this to you so that you can kind of understand how Tfue did it in this tournament. The key here is to shift between high ground and low ground. Start from high ground to weaken your enemies, and then work your way down to finish the kill. There are no better ways to fight in duos. And now we're going to go into clip number 2, which is actually pretty special. I'm going to show you guys 3 examples of how to use dynamite just like Tfue. It's pretty next level stuff. Here, Tfue is sandwiched between 2 players. He needs to act fast, but doesn't have the materials to push. He cooks a dynamite for a second and throws it on top of the roof. Right before the dynamite pops, he breaks the roof with his AR and the dynamite falls onto his opponent's lap. He does the exact same thing and forces him to disengage. Then he goes in with attack and finds the kill. The takeaway from this example is actually that the dynamite can work just like a falling clinger. Use this to your advantage because no one else knows this yet. You're going to catch everybody off guard. In the next example, Tfue dominates a 2v2 fight by making it rain dynamite again. His first one explodes on a player and breaks almost every wall, clearing the way for KittyPlays to secure high ground. He supports her from the backline with his AR and even more dynamite. His opponents have no chance to defend themselves because of the constant explosions and Tfue's aim. The last dynamite is icing on the cake, and it opens up a path for him to get up close and personal with his shotgun. He turns the corner and pops the last player in the face. The last example is short and sweet, but it's still a great display of dynamite's capabilities. Tfue sits in a 1x1 hiding from his opponent. He doesn't want to risk taking damage, so he lights up a dynamite and throws it at the very last second. It explodes midair and kills a player that hasn't been seen yet. The idea that you can destroy a 4x4 area with dynamite midair is insane. Think of the possibilities. You can bring down an entire structure by exploding dynamite this way. The fuse timer is 5 seconds long, so start counting Mississippis in your head when you light the fuse. In this clip, Tifu's death is in the first solo match. I'm in no way BMing Tifu here. I'm using this clip instead to show you what happens when you underestimate your enemies. We've seen Tifu win games from terrible positions time and time again. That wasn't the case this time. He's full health and shields with a great loadout, and this is normally a winning formula for him. But let's examine how everything went downhill. With the storm on his back, Tifu makes his move 20 seconds early. He scans the area and protects himself when necessary. Everything here is standard. He gets clipped by a bullet and then ends up turtling. But instead of drinking a slurp juice and running east, he edits out and pushes through the middle. This is where things go wrong. Take a look at the minimap. He's extremely close to the safe zone and has time to spare. If he had went east, he would have natural high ground and more importantly wouldn't be at risk of getting pinched. When rotating, the path of least resistance is tempting, but you need to consider what is next. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're safe. I know for a fact that Tifu is aware of this because he's an intelligent player. He would not have done this in a skirmish. He underestimated his opponents and made a fatal decision. Right as he crosses into the safe zone, he gets pelted from the west and then the east. And to top it off, Aim Hero enters his tunnel and takes him out. This all happened in 20 seconds. Tifu was not ready for this type of aggression and placed himself on a silver platter to his enemies. He has never had to play against this type of aggression before. Although he goes on to win the duo tournament, the solos was a different story. Korean players are clearly on the rise. It's no secret that Koreans dominate every esport that they participate in. Think League of Legends, StarCraft. Fortnite will be no different. I will talk about several Korean superstars all trying to become the next Tifu. Remember Envy? Not only did he rock Tifu in Game 2, he also displayed great fundamentals in a 15-kill game. Here he's in a 1v2 situation. He shoots his rockets at great spots and builds immediately. A textbook example of how to play with explosives. He's also building smart with reinforced ramps. He's taking shots right when he has the high ground. He even has the foresight to react to his opponent's rockets by backtracking and immediately building back up to high ground. Anytime his enemies tried to make a push, he responds by building and pressuring. And to end the fight, he fires a rocket and follows up with his AR. This play is scary. Envy has only played for 1 month. A month! Think about what we were all doing over here in our first month of Fortnite. Most of us were emoting in celebration when we built a wall in front of our ramp. He's building with thought, he's building with control, and most importantly, he's ahead of the curve, just like Tifu was a year ago. Just imagine what this guy will do in a year. Aim Hero is another player that's caught my eye. He kills Tifu in the third clip, but astounds again later in the duo tournament. He solo 1v2s Tifu and Kitty Plays. Let's watch from Tifu and Kitty Play's point of view. Tifu is stuck on low ground but is looking to pressure his enemies. He gets shot out by a mounted turret and Kitty Plays is quick to his rescue. They're able to isolate Aim Hero's teammate and secure the kill, but here's where the magic starts. Aim Hero has uncontested high ground against Tifu and Kitty Plays, who are both still healthy and hiding. Tifu makes a standard play and branches out of his tunnel. Doing this gave away his position. With this information, Aim Hero puts on his cape and breaks straight into Tifu's 1x1 and challenges him. Like I said earlier, Tifu has never faced this type of aggression before, and he gets obliterated. It's a 1v1 now. Kitty Plays has Aim Hero stuck in a box and is pushing in. He's defending every angle flawlessly, and Kitty Plays resorts to her grenades. Once the grenades are out, you can hear him running away and catch a quick glimpse of him right here. He's tunneling around and replacing builds. He's playing like a real pro. He has Kitty Plays completely lost. She eventually finds him and breaks his roof and replaces it, but Aim Hero doesn't panic. He trades shots and is calm enough to find cover under the opening. And once the roof breaks, he replaces it with his own. Obviously, always do this in your games too. Kitty Plays goes back to her grenades and Aim Hero responds with a 200 IQ play. He edits a corner of the wall right under Kitty Plays, so she drops down to the side, ready to fire. What's crazy about this was actually a bait. He edits out the other side and is already 2 tiles up in the air. Kitty Plays is fighting for high ground and makes a crucial error. She builds a few unnecessary roofs, then the sound cues allowed Aim Hero to track her down and land a nice deagle shot from behind. Kitty Plays is in pure survival mode right now. She gets shot down and pumped in the face. To cap it off, Aim Hero's BM game is on point. Aim Hero just 1v2'd the best American player plus Kitty Plays. He did so in commanding fashion with techniques the finest pros struggle with in high-pressure situations. So what does this all mean? What does this mean for competitive Fortnite? If history is any indication, then we're going to see some major changes very soon. Koreans will explode onto the scene. Many of the top esports, like League of Legends and Overwatch, follow Korean infrastructure. Best of fives in League of Legends were arguably the best thing to be added into tournament formats, and that was all thanks to the Koreans. Even in this tournament, the scoring system was unlike anything we've ever seen before. With Fortnite's current scoring system in limbo, maybe the Koreans can come in and finally give Epic a competitive format that works. Koreans have proven to be the best esports players. They are known to be hardworking, they learn incredibly fast, and most importantly, Fortnite is tailored for them. It's fast-paced and mechanically intensive. Korea will not struggle to pick up Fortnite, and Tfue just got a small taste of what Korean talent and aggression is capable of doing. So he and everybody in NA and EU better get used to it, because it's about to get a whole lot more competitive. This has been Christoph with Proguides. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you guys for watching this video. For those who are new to the channel, if you've enjoyed this video, check out some of the others on the right side of the screen. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications for whenever a new guide shows up. We have grown tremendously in the last few months and couldn't have done it without all of our supporters. Thank you again so much, and doubly so if you shared it with anyone else like your friends, family, or your pets. You guys are great, and we hope to keep making videos that you all like.